Hello and welcome. You're listening to CNET UK Podcast. This is episode 419 for Friday the 30th of January 2015. Reach for the sky. Sky is getting into the mobile game. Plus, Sony decides music streaming is someone else's problem now, and there's more to drones than missile strikes and crashing the White House. They could save the rainforest and even save your life. I'm Rich Shannon. Joining me in our high-tech London studio this week is Luke Westaway.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for glossing over the fact that I said rainforest.
You're welcome. I wasn't even listening. Sorry.
And also Andy Hoyle.
Hello.
Hello. He wasn't going to gloss over. That's why.
No, I was going to have a go and ask you to do it again, just to waste time. Importantly, today, Friday, is my birthday.
No, I'm pretty sure there's nothing important happening
today. You can
today.
expect that I won't be mentioning that several times throughout this podcast.
Okay, fair enough. We're filming this podcast as always, so to see what Andy looks like on the day of his 44th birthday.
Well, actually, no. Today's not my birthday, but when the podcast goes out tomorrow on Friday, 30th,
that doesn't count.
That's my birthday. Yeah, but that's when people will listen to this and can be like, "Oh, happy birthday!" Andy.
Yes, but they'll be listening to it and they'll know that what they're hearing are the words of a lying man.
A lie, an absolute lie.
Today, when people are listening to it and they're hearing today. What
about people listening to this in the future? Anyway, to see the video, youtube.com/CNET or on CNET.com. Right, let's kick off.
60.
I know, right? Let's kick off with the news.
Starting off with some very good news for Apple.
Yep.
Super good news for Apple, in fact. It has basically had an incredibly good fourth quarter from last year. It's given out its figures. It has made $18 billion. That is not only record-breaking for Apple, that is the most that any company has ever earned in a quarter.
Holy crap. So what was the previous holder of that?
The previous was ExxonMobil, which was 15.9 billion. So Apple has cleanly beat that.
A long way then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so is there anything interesting that we need to know about these results?
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, mostly it's really all about the iPhone. In fact, 69% of its sales came from the iPhone.
That's a lot. That's
great.
Yeah.
So, it's really...
And any new stuff coming up for this year we can look forward to?
Apple Watch. Thanks for asking, Rich and Luke. That is due to go on sale in April. So, keep your eyes peeled.
That is for the US, so if you're watching this in the US, howdy.
Howdy.
Unfortunately, we don't yet know when it's coming out in the UK.
Horrible expression, that, isn't it? Keep your eyes peeled.
I suppose it is.
Imagine having your eyes peeled.
Yeah. You have any thoughts on this particular subject apart from...
All I can think about now is having my eyes peeled.
Okay.
Yes, I do have a thought actually, Rich.
Good.
I think it's interesting to compare Apple today with how Apple was 2 years ago, or at least the perceptions of the company.
Yeah.
Because if you look back just a little way, sort of like in the year following Steve Jobs' death, we had like the Apple Maps debacle.
Yes.
I think this was all 2012, and Samsung was just sort of like powering straight in there.
That's right.
Very, very quickly became the world's biggest smartphone maker. And I think a lot of people, very reasonably, were saying sort of, I think this is probably it. I think Apple may have peaked. But turns out we were wrong. And it's, 2014 festive period has made even more money than you thought was possible. More money than any company's ever made. It's made all the money, and it sold all the iPhones.
Absolutely. And mentioning Samsung as well, the fact that Samsung kind of came and took over the mobile phone market and became the biggest mobile phone manufacturer in the world, took over from Nokia and was sort of beating Apple in terms of market share. But now, Samsung is in real trouble. They've had their fifth consecutive quarter of losses. This announced this week at the same time as Apple. And more importantly, in terms of global smartphone market share, they're both neck and neck. This is very exciting because Samsung's on 30% and they've dropped to 20%, and Apple was on 18% and they've come up to 20%. So they're both on 20%. So
crikey.
All to play for. Although it's worth bearing in mind that that market share is an interesting one because markets get bigger, so you can have a smaller market share and still sell more phones. But anyway, so they're neck and neck is the important point.
That's very interesting. And There are some sort of notes of caution in this news that Apple's got more money than it's got all the money that there is. Yeah. And that is that it's all down to the iPhone. So some people have said, well, what about what if the iPhone suddenly becomes unpopular? Yeah, which is
it's a possibility.
Could happen. Hasn't happened yet, but could happen. Commenters, however, have Apple's back. Richie MXX.
Richie Mix.
Richie Mix.
Good old Richie Mix. Yeah. How's he doing? Haven't seen him for a while.
What's going on in the Richie Mix? That's what he says when he enters a room. He's called Richie, and the room is his mix. What's going on in Richie's Mix? Yes. Anyway, Richie Mix
what's Richie Mix saying?
Kudos to Apple. They've been able to market the heck out of an aging concept and continue to milk it for all it has. Glad to see the American dream still works.
Absolutely.
I like that's a bit of a backhanded compliment, isn't it?
Well,
like
yeah,
it's just milking it for its worth.
It's like, congratulations for making all the money in this awful system that keeps us all.
And if that's not the American dream, then who knows what is?
Meanwhile, XYZ19815555.
Oh, how is old XYZ19815555?
Still a robot.
Yeah, he still owes me a tenner, actually.
I am says Apple is going to keep innovating year after year, unlike Microsoft.
Oh, burn!
Ouch.
Not based in logic or facts or
I think
anything.
that's a little harsh as well on Microsoft, because obviously Microsoft does tend to sort of get most of things wrong and things like that. But it did.
Microsoft.
It did Microsoft. It did this week do Windows 10 the last week, which is kind of interesting, and HoloLens, which is
Windows 10.
It completely skipped over Windows 9. How's that for innovating?
Because
they're like innovating out numbers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they've forgotten. Apparently, there's a good reason for that not being a Windows 9.
So in Germany, they won't think it's Windows No.
I'm
sure there's a real reason.
I'll wait for Windows Yes.
Windows Yeah.
Yeah, it's apparently it's because there's loads of sort of software, like older stuff, that just looks for Windows 9 in sort of lines of code and things, because it's looking for Windows 95, 98, and things like that.
Okay.
And so as soon as it sees Windows 9, regardless of what comes after it, it's like, whoa, okay, I know what we're running, an old thing, and sort of freaks out.
It's like Millennium Bug and shuts everything down and crashes the planes.
Basically, yeah. It would be absolutely classic Microsoft if they successfully did the Millennium Bug 15 years late.
That would be such a difficult
They ended the world late.
Won't it just read 10 as like 1, though? It'll put it at the beginning of the list.
You'd think.
Like it does with all my music and things.
On the subject of Microsoft innovating, there is we kind of missed this last week because the podcast recorded on the day that it was announced, but there was Windows 10 and the HoloLens. That kind of
HoloLens,
thing.
yes.
If you want to know more about the HoloLens, there is a very good video by this man over here, Luke Westaway.
Luke and Mark, who you'll never see.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 5 things you need to know about HoloLens, so it explains everything.
Look for that. Search for HoloLens on CNET. Why don't we move on to the next news story?
I'm going to talk a bit about Sony right now, because it's killed off Music Unlimited. That was Sony's own music streaming service, basically it's a rival to Spotify, and oddly it has partnered with Spotify to put Spotify on the PlayStation.
That's right.
It's killed off its own service and partnered up with the rival.
Music Unlimited never really happened. It started off as Curiosity. It never really picked up as Music Unlimited. It was available in 19 countries, and it's going to be replaced by Music Unlimited, which is basically just Spotify with a PlayStation sticker on it, and that's going to be available in 41 countries.
It feels quite significant that Sony couldn't make music streaming work.
Exactly.
Being a record company.
Yeah.
They own it end to end. They've got the artists and they've got the distribution platform.
It's an end-to-end solution.
Console, yeah. But if they couldn't make it work, then who could? It just goes to show really that like your third parties, like your Spotify's and that kind of thing, they're the people who are kind of, in charge of music. But so if you're a subscriber of Music Unlimited, then that will continue until the end of March, so about a month, and you'll get this last month for free, and then you'll be offered some free Spotify monies to have a go on that. And Music Unlimited, PlayStation Music is going to start in spring. So there you go. Are we going to read a reaction?
TG Lane says, I love Spotify, but I only use the free version on my desktop or shuffle through my phone. If they team up with PlayStation and the free version isn't available, it may be enough to cause me to make the jump to Spotify Premium.
Well, there you go. I
think that's certainly what they'll be hoping.
The most interesting thing, Spotify is one customer waiting to be snapped up.
That's what you got to do. Not off with the free version. Don't be nice. Go in hardball. And that is how to win.
Well, you recommend a ruthless approach.
There wasn't a free version of Music Unlimited. So there you go. I think the most interesting thing about this probably is the fact that if you have a PS4, you can have Spotify Music playing as you're playing your games, which is kind of cool, I think.
Yeah.
What about if you got good soundtracks on the games already? That'd be annoying.
Yeah, but what if you
Well,
don't?
what, that kind of beepy boopy music they have on the video games?
Yeah, everything's still 8-bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's rubbish.
That's what all of the pop music is.
It's true.
Beatles' new album is just chiptunes.
It's just noise. It's just noise. Yeah.
Well, I'm
So,
going to move on.
yeah.
If that's okay by the two of you.
It's probably best, yeah.
Luke, are you okay with that?
I think so.
Sweet, I'm going to do that then. BBC has a new service. It's called Taster.
Yep.
And as the name kind of suggests, it's basically a service that lets you sort of experience some of BBC's new sort of experiments and things. A little like Google used to do with labs, really, I think.
That's
Google
right.
was fun.
Yeah.
And then the idea with this is that you can sort of use these services and then vote for the ones that you think are best.
That's right. So I went along to BBC Broadcasting House, which was a bit of a childhood exciting
Check
thing
out
to
this
do.
guy.
Which one was that?
Not Television Centre, not the big round one, because that's closed now. That's like flats.
Because that's
or
where I
something.
was the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you go to the wrong one by mistake?
No. Well,
Were you taking a stand?
Media Centre is just round the corner from it still.
Right.
That's still operational.
Okay.
But Broadcasting House is one that's now in.
I went to
London.
Broadcasting House. That's the really old one that was in central London. But yes, so I went along to have a look at this, and it's quite interesting. What it is basically a website where you can kind of rate these experiments that previously the BBC would have done and tried out, and then you might never have ever seen them. But it's all these kind of interactive ways of kind of interacting with their content. So it's stuff like, for example, if there's an interview filmed for the for Newsnight or the Culture Show or something like that, they're going to chat for ages, but then you'll only see sort of 5 minutes of it actually on Newsnight or the Culture Show. So what they do is they've come up with this way of presenting it to you in sort of bite-sized ways. So if you like a particular interviewee, and in this the example they've got on live at the moment is Lena Dunham being interviewed by Jennifer Saunders. You can just go along and you can see them chatting away. There's stuff like interactive tour guides with Benjamin Zephaniah, who's a poet, a few other things. There's a thing where you can kind of create a timeline of BBC News stories of your life, which is kind of cool. It's
That's
quite
neat.
interesting, yeah. So it's kind of interesting. It's aimed mostly at kids. It's not a particularly serious thing. There was one particular thing that it's called Riot, where the I is with a 1, and it's this thing where you can kind of go and vote for things on Radio 1. Radio 1 listeners go and vote for things.
Oh, Rwanot.
Rwanot, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I saw that.
So what was great about it was at the demonstration they were like, and what could happen, for example, is Radio 1 listeners and fans could vote for who's going to present the breakfast show
cool.
next week, and I was like, that's a pretty big deal, choosing DJs for the breakfast show. And then afterwards I said, are you really going to do that? That's really cool. And they said, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Oh.
So it's probably going to be used for more things like which artists you like, so that they might, who they're going to play next and that kind of thing.
Right.
But it's it's kind of fun idea. So it's all these sort of like data interactive mashup things aimed at kids that you can sort of have a go.
Could be worth because Radio 1 does a lot of like live lounge stuff and invites artists in. So maybe you could like vote for whoever's more popular, get them in. I mean, it'll just be Bieber week after week, won't it?
Well, that's the thing. The one other things I really liked actually. One thing that I did really like was the thing
Some
where
Swifties in.
where you it's called Who's In, and it's basically like it takes who's physically come into the BBC each day. So instead of like looking at each individual radio station, only seeing what's on that radio station, you get a sense of all the different pop stars and experts and presenters and personalities and poets and writers and all these kind of people who are going in and out of the BBC on any given day, which I thought was quite interesting, because that's what the BBC's for, right? All that kind of broad range of stuff, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's what we pay for it.
That's
So
exactly.
you should get as much as you can out of it.
Exactly. Laugh, I nearly paid my licence fee. So, yeah. Pay your licence fee, kids, anyway.
Do pay your licence fee. Come on, just pay it.
Just
It's
pay
a
it.
price.
Don't no, Luke, just pay it.
All
right.
I have paid it.
All right, just
Thank
pay
you
it.
very
Pay
much.
Because they know where you live, apart from anything else.
do.
Anyway,
Anyway, yes,
Yeah.
people wanting to stalk their friends, look at photos of food, or source casual sex were angry this week because Facebook,
Angry
Instagram,
every week.
and Tinder were all down.
Oh no.
Now, this was the time a lot of people saying that the services have been hacked, but no, apparently it was an hour-long problem caused by their own engineers, probably like plugging the wrong Ethernet cable in somewhere.
probably, yeah. Dug through a cable. something
Tripped
like
over
that.
the power
Yeah.
cord.
Yeah.
But it's all back up now, so
They walked it too far away from the wall, and the plug came out. The cord pulled out the back.
Well, this is the thing. So this was like the longest outage for about 4 years, apparently. So that's quite a big
Wow.
deal. I think what this kind of shows is the kind of danger of the social graph. The fact that Facebook wants to be at the heart of everything, and it wants you to use your Facebook credentials to sign into everything, and it wants to have almost like an extra layer on top of the internet, where every site you go to has some kind of Facebook presence. presence, whether it's comments or signing in or whatever. But that does mean that if all the kind of not power exactly, but if the kind of influence and importance is placed in one place and it goes down because someone trips over a plug or whatever it is, or even just has a typo in some code or something, then everything goes wrong. And
right. So it was because Instagram and Tinder that you log into those services by Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when Facebook went down, it meant you couldn't use those services because those aren't owned and operated by Facebook. They're
Instagram is owned by Facebook.
Oh,
now.
okay, but Tinder isn't.
Tinder isn't.
But because you have to use Facebook to use Tinder to swipe and find people you want to do.
You're awfully conversant with Tinder for someone who's in a committed long-term relationship.
I've had enough people sitting there showing me, so here's what you do on Tinder.
Likely story. Well, it is your birthday, I suppose. You're one day of the year you're allowed to. And what are our readers and listeners saying about this particular situation, this terrible disaster that befell us all for an hour?
Well, actually, you know what, I kind of imagine when you say Facebook went down for an hour, do you know the last Matrix film where at the end Neo and Trinity, just for a brief moment, fly the spaceship like over the clouds? And it's still like blue sky.
I can't really remember that, but okay.
Pure blue sky of the real world, like above the sort of noxious like fumes that cover it the rest of the time.
Okay.
I wonder if it was a bit like that.
I picture people running and screaming and things being on fire. But there you go.
Right.
So we have
P barefoot.
P barefoot.
P barefoot.
I'm not sure that's sanitary, frankly. But I'm hoping that's his initials, PE barefoot.
It's one of the most sanitary things you can do.
Is it? Okay,
I'm a doctor.
Good for athlete's foot.
Yep.
You don't want it soaking into your shoes.
So what does P barefoot say?
This is what says. This is why I do not use Facebook to log into any other site.
Very wise.
That was the comment.
My shoes in the
For someone who pees barefoot, that was quite a wise thing to say. Actually.
It's not pee, it's per barefoot.
Okay, sure. All right, and
finally,
don't pee barefoot in like a festival.
No,
or
don't
when
do
you're
that.
in one of those long troughs in a Weatherspoons where there's lots of drunk people on either side.
You're not supposed to get in
it
that
goes
trough,
everywhere.
Andy.
Like, oh, really? I wonder where I'm going there wearing wellies.
A free bed.
And finally,
I can't remember what's finally. Is
Yes.
it not more about urinating?
it's some drone.
It is, yes.
Game of
There was a bit of panic when a quadricopter crashed in the grounds of the White House. Now, that, of course, did mean that the entire building basically went into lockdown. So, no, what's happening here? Is this an attack? Is there something happening?
Is this White House down all over again?
No. What actually happened then? It was...
I love this story. It was so a drone kind of crashed into it, and they weren't quite sure what happened. It wasn't a big panic, but a drone kind of landed in the grounds, and they weren't quite sure what had gone on. And then the next day, some guy got up and went, "Yeah, I was a bit drunk last night, and I was messing around with the drone. I think it might have gone over the fence into the White House. Sorry about that."
Did he come round and all sheepish with his mum stood behind him?
Knocked on the
Can I have my drone back? What over the fence?
What's great about this as well is that
this is the fourth time this week. If it happens again, we're keeping it.
So DJI, who make the Phantom 2, which is one of the best known drones.
It's good. I've got one. It's great.
They've actually done a software update in response to this, where the White House or a certain area of Washington DC is now a no-fly zone, so it won't.
I'm
fly
surprised
in
it
there.
wasn't already.
If you try and fly, if the software knows it's a no-fly zone, if you try and fly into the no-fly zone, what does it do? It
blows up.
Return back.
Blows up. That doesn't sound very good. Sounds like the one thing you want to.
I think it's like the end of RoboCop, where it's like prime directive, do not know what to do, and then it like crashes.
It returns back to you because it's all done on GPS and it knows where you're standing, so it just won't go in there.
It flies back to you with an accusing look.
I'm surprised.
I'm
surprised White House and other government buildings aren't already on that, because it did. Like airports are now no-fly zones in response to when somebody flew a DJI onto Heathrow a while ago and got in a flight path with planes. So a lot of sort of...
Be careful with your drones.
Yeah, do be careful.
Yeah. But there's more to drones than that. I mean, with this week we also covered Drones for Good, which is this $1 million competition for people who have got these students and other academics and experts and that kind of thing. People who have come up with these ideas for using drones and unmanned aerial vehicles to do cool things to help people out.
Like what?
So, for example, there's a drone that a particular drone design that what it does is it flies above like former war zones, and it can detect landmines from the air. And there's a couple of different versions that are, like, work with Coast Guard, so that they can not only fly out and cover larger search areas, fly ahead of the rescue boats and cover search areas. They can also, if needs be, they can ditch in the water, and they've got handles on flotation tanks, so that if they find a survivor and it's going to take a while for the boat to arrive, they can ditch in the water and the people can grab onto them. And there you go.
Could I think drop rings?
They could. That's another thing they could do. Yeah, totally. So there's one of my favourites though is the one that it flies over deforested areas, and it fires nutrient-rich seed pods into the ground. ground and reforest large areas, which is really cool.
What if those robots go crazy and accidentally reforest central London?
I think that would be okay. That's fine. That's not a problem.
Give it back to the earth.
There's one honourable mention as well for this last one. There was a guy who thought a little bit outside the box, and he didn't come up with a design for a drone. He came up with an idea for a way of actually helping drones to deliver things. So you know how Amazon are talking about maybe delivering packages on drones.
Yeah.
But they can't just fly over and start dropping packages out the sky willy-nilly. You don't want a shoebox hitting you in the head.
You only want seed pods.
That's how I got my new fridge delivered.
Yeah.
Just delivered by catapult.
Yeah, it was straight through the ceiling. Didn't have to lug it up the stairs or anything.
Yeah, I mean, you do
straight into your
all
living
your food
room.
is now in the garden. But there you go. If you don't have a garden, what do you do? So he's come up with this idea that of a big net, basically, and viewers can see it on the screen there. It's basically a big net. It's got a barcode on it.
It's an actual net.
It's an actual net. So the drone comes down and pops the thing in there. It's on the outside of your house or your flat, or you don't even need a garden. It's got a net in there to protect it. It's got a barcode there to make sure that it's delivering to the right place, and it is called Skynet. What could possibly go wrong? But there you go. So have a look at that. Drones for good. I think that's kind of cool. All right. Well, that's enough news. Let's move on to this week's feature. So 2015 is the 30th anniversary of the British mobile phone industry, and it's fitting then that this year is seeing some of the biggest shakeups we've ever seen. First, BT announced it would buy EE, then 3 announced it's buying O2, and now Sky is getting involved too, announcing it will create its own mobile network in 2016. Sky's network will be powered by Telefonica, the current owners of O2. So why are all these changes happening? It's all to do with what they call in the industry quad play, a 4-pronged strategy where telecoms companies offer you a package of broadband, landline, TV, and a mobile phone. BT and Sky, already rivals in the world of broadband, TV and landlines, will now complete the package with their mobile networks. Just a few years ago there were 5 major players, and now there's going to be 3. So what's going to happen next? Luke, you have some thoughts on this, don't you?
Yes, I do. First, I'd just like to pause to silently appreciate the majesty that is quad play. My favourite buzzword. Quad play.
Quad play.
Quad play.
Yeah.
It sounds so boring and yet so professional.
Yes.
Quad play.
It does have a certain majesty to it.
It sounds like a technique in squash. You're like, mate, you need to work on your quad play.
The commentators are like, and that's a fantastic piece of quad play there.
That's quad play. Classic quad play. He's always been so good at quad play, especially on this turf.
So is anyone missing out in all these industry manoeuvres?
Yes. So this is what's basically happening now is all the companies are racing to get this quad play thing up and running, but some people aren't doing so well at it, notably Vodafone.
Vodafone, yeah.
Which, poor old Vodafone, only a few months ago was just one of the major UK mobile providers, and now suddenly is looking in a rather shaky position because it doesn't offer all of those things. It doesn't have the full 4 quads. It doesn't have the 4 prongs of the quad play strategy.
It only has 3 of the prongs.
That's right. And no one cares. It's not triple play. No one
well,
wins
that's what it's called, but yeah, no one cares about that anymore.
No one
quad
cares
play
about
now.
that.
It's all about quad play.
Yeah, so basically the question is what's going to happen to Vodafone. So,
Yes.
Sky's mobile service is kind of interesting, but it's so far away, it's not going to happen until next year, and we don't know anything about prices yet or stuff like that. So at the minute, this is still just kind of interesting, sort of what's happening to all the companies. They're all sort of forming these weird alliances. The landscape is shifting, it's crazy.
Absolutely, yeah. Industry consolidation.
Yes, good.
Yeah. So what about Andy? Are you? How do you feel about this? Are you happy, glad, frightened?
I'm just going to say, Vodafone might team up with Sky still.
Might buy Sky, possibly.
Could happen. Well, some people have said Vodafone could, which sounds crazy.
Sky seems too big for Vodafone to just buy. Because Sky's got so many.
No one's too big for Vodafone to buy.
Vodafone is it's not just a British network. Remember, it started off as a British network, but it is also now an international thing. It is a big deal in
by
Europe
you and everyone you care about.
Exactly. In fact, it probably has.
Sky Atlantic, all this. They're too big for Vodafone to buy, right? I can see it the other way around. Maybe Sky buying Vodafone.
No. Well,
how do you feel about quad play?
So it seems a bit confusing. Like, do people really understand?
What's confusing about quad play, Andy?
Well, exactly. You see it as a term. Like, do people really
play?
I'm not sure people are really
really
get sort of the benefit, if there is a benefit to be had with that. So maybe it'll take a little while for
Would you
that
like
to
one
work
company
out.
to?
So I wouldn't, because I don't want this, because I don't want I don't have TV. I have a TV, but I use streaming services, and I don't have a landline phone. I don't know anyone who has a landline phone. So for me,
but only because my mobile phone signal in my flat is rubbish.
Sure. So for me, like, quad play just does not work as a concept. So I'd rather have a dedicated just mobile phone service, which I actually think Vodafone, it could be in a good position to be like a niche provider where it is only doing one thing, but it can specialize in it and really know what to do as just a phone provider. Like there is a benefit there of offering service, and it does have things like Spotify and Sky Sports that it's offering with its bundles already. So it's still got a decent position.
It also will be good to have more competition as well, because we're going from 5 major players to 3. That's kind of a worry in terms of competition and pricing and that kind of thing. Yeah, but it's a long way off, though, right? Like it's going to take a little while.
Yes, and all of this, like all these big acquisitions, which, and by the way, Andy, I'm with you. I think quad play is sort of. Yeah, it's a bit confusing. Do you definitely want all those 4 things? How do you know if you're getting a good deal when you're paying for so many things at once? That sort of thing. Yeah. But this is all still a little way off, because the BTE deal is subject to regulatory approval. So is the thing between O2 and 3's owner. That's between Telefonica and Hutchison One Power. Incredible name. So it's all subject to approval. So it won't definitely happen. But the European Commission would get the final say-so on the O2 and the EE deals. But they agreed a similar deal in Germany last year, which might make it more likely that these are going to be pushed through, because that sets a precedent of it basically being okay.
Yeah.
Or else everyone in Germany would be like, hang on.
It's true. And it could be that Ofcom might say, well, you've got to sell off a few bits of your business, and then you won't be too big when you actually come together.
It's going to be so complicated, because, for example, O2 and Vodafone have like a mast sharing agreement. Things like that. Like all of the companies already have these weird sort of informal.
Yes, they're very intertwined, aren't they?
Yeah. It's all very, very complicated and very tied up, and it's going to make it even more confusing for shoppers, because you're going to sort of you could be going for like Orange and not realising that you're sort of like actually tying yourself to BT, which is just so weird, because EE is Orange and T-Mobile.
Well, speaking of which, what are first reactions from readers, listeners, viewers, and other human beings?
Well, James Bedwell on the Facebooks.
Hello, James.
Says, Sky broadband is the worst. Slow router, slow internet. Not even free broadband for a year could convince me to stay with them. Now on BT Fibre with a much better router and no regrets.
Well, there you go. Good.
Nice.
That's pretty damning. Good
stuff, James. George Byers says, ew. Cancel everything to do with Sky. Oh, that's just ew. EW. Ew.
Oh, that's a PR nightmare.
Yeah. The press nightmare, isn't it? Like you tell the world about your new service, and they're like, ew. Ew.
Well,
I have to wash my hands.
Well, let us know how you feel about these new manoeuvrings, and whether you'll be sticking with your current provider when things all get thrown up in the air and come down and land in completely different shapes. Yep. So keep us posted. And for now, we're going to move on to the quiz. Yes, it's time for the quiz once again, and the leaderboard currently stands at Jason 6, Andy 6, Luke 6. This is very exciting. It is neck and neck. You can't split a hair between them or something. Anyway, this week, Luke sounds like this. And Andy sounds like this. Excellent. So,
one of us has a relevant topical buzzer.
That's right, because we are going to be talking about...
this quiz isn't about clowns.
But we are clowns.
We are going to be talking about the mobile phone networks of the past due to the changings around in the industry. It's a thing. It's mobile phones networks of the past.
It's a thing.
Anyway, so fingers on buzzers, fastest finger first. Question 1. It wasn't best known as a telecoms company, but which company owned the largest private telecoms network in Britain? It had 17,000 kilometres of fibre optic and copper cable connecting every major city and town, and it linked to Europe through the Channel Tunnel. Luke.
Was it something like the post office? Or like Royal Mail or something?
That's not the correct answer that I'm looking for.
Kind
I can see where you're going.
And kind of thing. All right.
This is. it was kind of similar because that was privatised, and some people say when a company's privatised, it goes off the rails. So Andy, have you got any thoughts on that?
Was it British Rail?
You've got to buzz in, mate.
Wait, no,
I'm not sure.
Was it British Rail?
It was British Rail. That's right. It was the largest telecoms network in the country. There you go. So that's fascinating stuff, isn't it? Yeah, the post office was the original name for British Telecom. It was the GPO, General Post Office, because it was all part of the same thing. But then, it all split up. It's very complicated, actually, the history of British.
I thought you were flipping me the bird there. you were holding up a finger to like one moment. Yeah.
Did I get that point?
You did get that point. You got that point. Andy got that point. Right, okay.
A bit cruel for Luke, because there was a big clue from you.
Yeah, well. You needed all the help you could get.
I'm going to get a big clue this time.
Question 2. Vodafone made the first mobile phone call 30 years ago this year, and also the first text message. But what did the first text say?
Luke, happy birthday.
That's the right answer. Yes, this is a high-scoring round. Someone's actually answering.
You
some
got a
questions.
big
This
clue
is right.
because it's my birthday.
That was a bigger clue for you.
It has already been playing into your hands.
Also, it's not your birthday.
That wasn't actually a clue. That's just what it said. Right, question 3. Question 3. This is all to play for. This is exciting.
Okay,
This is very
right.
exciting.
I can't handle it. I can't handle it. I
The
quit.
tension
I pass.
mounts. The
I pass.
suspense.
Andy wins. I can't deal with this.
Which of today's networks began life as Mercury 1-1? Andy.
T-Mobile.
It was T-Mobile. That's the correct answer. Well done. Andy wins.
I used to be on 1-1,
Wow.
in fact.
There you go.
And pressing 121 called your answer phone. Although actually it does on Vodafone now, so that's weird. Anyway,
Good stuff.
So I won.
And the
Couldn't hack
tiebreak question would have been, it doesn't matter, but the tiebreak question would have been, for the nearest 5 years, when was cable and wireless established? The answer may surprise you.
1997.
The answer may surprise you, Luke.
1066.
It was something
Is this what that battle was about?
Yes.
1992.
It totally was, yeah. They left the phone ringing. No, it was 1934.
Oh.
So yeah, that's
That doesn't. Okay, fine.
I didn't even know they knew what wireless was in.
Well,
everything has to have wires.
they did. Yeah, it was like the first infrastructure company, like after telegraphs and stuff.
That lovely new bonnet, got to have wires.
There you go. So
New
Andy
shoes, wires.
is on 7. That's very exciting. Come back next week to see what's going to happen. And next up, let's have the feedback.
So let's hear what you guys have been saying, or should I say you guy, because we're a little short on feedback.
No,
this
there's loads of feedback. There's
There's
loads of
loads-
questions.
loads and loads of
we might
feedback.
only have time for one, though.
Oh, we've only got time for one. That's a shame. Andrew Winter says, I recently gave into pressure from society and bought a pair of Beats headphones. This was a compromise, as I couldn't find anything that fit my audio needs. What I really wanted was a pair of wireless, as my past 8 earphones have broken at the jack, in-ear earphones, without the stupid sporty bits, connected together by a wire, as I would undoubtedly lose one.
Okay.
With decent sound quality,
Yep.
I am no audiophile.
Well, who is?
And around £50 to £100. If such things exist, I would love to know so that I can self-criticise my decision. So
Okay.
I point out here, first of all, that Andrew's not looking really for buying advice. He's just the kindest thing we could do was to say there aren't any, and
Yeah.
you made the right purchasing
You
decision.
made the right decision, Andrew.
You made the right decision. If you're happy
Don't
with
worry
it,
about anything.
don't
Everything
overthink
is
it.
fine. Just
Don't overthink it. But
Enjoy
if
your headphones.
if you are determined to punish yourself, I would recommend that you search CNET Best Sports Headphones, because
Yes.
we have a roundup of many headphones,
Just what
sporty
you're looking
ones,
for, yeah.
wireless kinds of things that seem to be within that price range. Something else I'd point out: don't forever abandon the like wired earphones, because lots of headphones these days increasingly have replaceable wires.
That's true.
which is good. So,
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't matter if the wire gets.
Any
all
thoughts on this
rubbish.
one, Andy?
Yeah, because he mentioned just like this, the sporty bits, like the clips and stuff. Those are actually really important, particularly on wireless sport headphones, because all the Bluetooth connectivity and everything, and the batteries, of course, are held in the earpieces. They're really, really heavy, so will fall out quite easily, particularly if you are running. So you kind of do need those clips.
Okay.
That's
fair enough.
just one thought.
All right. Well,
Right.
so which bit of feedback should we do next? Should we do the marriage
Well,
proposal or the?
there's loads. There's some dark confessions.
I don't know if we can do that. In
I
fact-
think it was like, oh, hang on, I'm just getting in my ear. There's no more time.
No
for
more
any
time, okay,
feedback.
no
That's
more
a
time.
shame. It's really good
Mark,
stuff.
who you will never see, is making some kind of chopping gesture. I'm not sure if that's he's saying we're running out of time or he's going to kill us when it finished. I'm not really sure. Thank you for all the feedback.
Yeah, if he is saying he's going to kill us when we finish, it'll be in our interest to sort of keep it going.
Yeah.
It'd be like speed. We could sort of send like signals and tweets to the audience, so then like,
If this podcast drops below 30 words a minute, then we will be killed by a producer.
please keep the feedback coming, folks, by emailing us at our email address, which is cnetukpodcast@cbsi.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. You know how to use the internet. You're
Tweets and
a
birthday
tech-savvy
messages.
bunch.
You're all experts. Thank you very much, Luke. Thank you, Andy. Thanks to our producer Mark, who you will never see. Right, we're off to fly our drones into Big Ben. See you next week.